The black shirts with the dagger. Malcolm Hartzog with a giant pick sails the night for the Big Red. We're done. Huskers win. Golly, grandkids.
They are storming the floor. Love it. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers have run the table and run it back. Back-to-back Big Ten tournament champions.
Here's Tom Stevens and Mike Melby on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome in, Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7. An actual game week. Last week, a bye week. Of course, last week they played Michigan, but then they had a bye week. That's been almost 2 weeks. Anyway, this is an actual game week. Homecoming, Nebraska, Michigan State. We'll talk a lot about it with Jim Rose, former voice of Nebraska football, morning show host at KFAB. Also, Bryan Munson to talk a little bit of recruiting. Nebraska just got a new commit for the 2020 calendar year, 2027 calendar year, but nonetheless, Jabari Watkins is his name. We'll talk to Bryan about him and other recruiting news. And then in hour number 2, Tonia Tauke Dorn, former Husker volleyball star and head coach at Nebraska One. How you doing, Mike?
Doing good. Trying to recover from last night.
What happened last night?
Well, as we talked about last year, like my Halloween character Shaggy and Tracy's Halloween character Luna.
You guys do Halloween. Are you decorating the yard this year?
No. Shaggy's Sinister Circus is done. We
that was
retired.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Do you still have a place where people can go look at the pictures of that?
I mean, if you go to YouTube and type in Shaggy Sinister Circus, there's 3 videos from 21, 22, 23. We haven't put one up for last year.
Because you used to have people, like 1,000 people visit.
It was about 650 or so. Yeah, it was. There was. I thought we needed kind of like people directing traffic, but
yeah, it was great. It was fantastic.
Yeah, but we went out to Roca last night. We did about 11 to 14 nights last year. We're only going to do a few this year, but I am all of almost 58. And
yes,
there are parts of me that I forgot I had that hurt this morning, and had a good time though. It's always fun to scare people and entertain people. I'm just as happy if I get somebody to laugh and make their night from just a fun thing as opposed to scaring them to where they.
Shaggy is your character's name.
Yeah.
And he has an accent.
Oh yeah, because he likes more victims.
Did you just come up with the accent out of nowhere?
Literally, in my driveway in like 2017 or 18, the first year or so of Shaggy Sinister Circus. It's
kind of an Aussie type thing, maybe.
I don't even know.
I don't even know what it is.
Like some weirdo.
But he's a creepy guy.
He's a creepy guy. That I know for sure. The Shaggy's actually from. There's a bar in Pensacola that is our favorite bar. The service is amazing and the food is amazing. It's on the Little Sabine Bay, just literally across the street from the what is Pensacola Beach, and that was the catalyst for the name. But anyway, yeah, we had fun last night out there. We're going to do a couple more nights, but
I'm a little sad.
I'm wore out, man.
There's no circus this year, but nonetheless, if people want to see Shaggy, they can come out to Rocaberry.
Yeah, Roca will be out there. I think the October 12th and 18th.
All right. Also, voice of Stars hockey from days gone by, and apparently still fills in from time to time.
Yeah, it was a little weird last year. 10 years and 1 week to the day from my last game as a full-time play-by-play guy. I called the game last year.
That's great. Let's get to the opening kick. We try to do it at the start of every show. Recap the weekly news, Husker headlines.
Now the opening kickoff on Husker Rewind.
Cross to the middle. Juggle. Diving touchdown, Nebraska. Davison on the deflection. Nebraska's a point away from tying the game. The deflection is caught. The fans have broken into the end zone. They expected the game to be over. But a touchdown was signaled for in the end zone. They'll clear the field and kick for the tie. We could be headed to overtime.
I still remember sitting in my living room watching.
That's right. We watched that game together.
Husker volleyball is 12-0 after sweeping Michigan last Wednesday and Maryland yesterday afternoon, both at the Bob. Up next is a road match in Happy Valley against a 6-4 and 15th ranked Penn State team on Friday night, followed by a trip to New Brunswick, New Jersey to take on Rutgers on Saturday night. Sam Pittman is out at Arkansas after yesterday's 56-13 home loss to Notre Dame.
What was their record on it? They won it.
They're 2-3 now.
2-3. Because
But
he was kind of a hot name just a couple of years ago.
well, he was, and then just like Scott Frost, he got put into a conference that's got some like actual good coaches, and
Brett
maybe
Bielema didn't even work out at Arkansas.
No. So what does Arkansas do? Because this just makes sense in Arkansas. Former Louisville and Arkansas head coach Bobby Petrino has been named the interim head coach. He's currently the offensive coordinator. There is, however, no official word yet if Petrino will be bringing Jessica Durrell to serve as the program's player of development coordinator and motorcycle ride share partner.
That's a little mean, Mike.
It is, but you know what? Sometimes facts are mean. At any rate, yeah, Petrino, and there's a big push, I guess, amongst the fan base. They want Petrino back.
He's the best coach they've had in the last it was Petrino, then maybe Lou Holtz.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long
Lou
time.
Holtz cheated because he cheated everywhere he went.
Well, so did a lot of other coaches, but Petrino probably would be one of those as well.
I'm sure he was cheating as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's now 5 Power 4 jobs available: Arkansas, UCLA, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, and Stanford. I would actually have to put Arkansas at the top of that list for like most coveted of them. I would put UCLA at the bottom and Stanford close to the bottom. That was my question. Do
you think Arkansas is a good job? Because it used to be, but I don't think it has been for a long time.
I think they need some more NIL support. That's the game we're going to play. You had mentioned a clip we're going to go over with Matt Rule about $40 million rosters, but that's part of it. But you're in the SEC. I mean, that's it. That's where you need to be, is the SEC or Big Ten. But if you don't have the finances to do it, to pay the guys that you need to come compete, then enjoy being a doormat and collecting the revenue.
Do you have a lot more stories coming up? Because I do want to get to that.
That's good. There's not a whole lot going on without.
This is Matt Rule. He was asked a question on why they didn't get a running back out of the portal. He said, well, it costs a lot of money to get a running back out of the portal. And then it kind of, as usually does, drifts into a bigger conversation about the cost of a roster. This is Matt Rule talking about that.
Some people paid more money than I had. So that's the reality of it. I love our backs, though. I just, I say that like, I don't mean that there's like, you can probably hear a little tone in me, because like there's about 3 people who could say that question to me because they've given me money and I'm able to go get players. So I'm saying like, oh, coach, well, I'm worried about, when people say to me, like, I'm worried about the D line. You know how much a D lineman costs nowadays to go get him in the portal? Like, all right, they're $18.90 right there. Write a check, and then you can talk to me about what you think we should do. And I say that respectfully towards our players. Like we're going to have to spend a lot of money to keep this roster together. We have a good roster. We have a good team. I think Mekhi Nelson's the starting running back in college football. I think Isaiah Mozee is going to be dynamic. He's just young. We're trying to figure him out. And I think Quentin Ives is a big physical back. But like the whole, for me, I want our players to hear, like, I'm not going to start talking about, I wish I'd have done this differently, because that belittles our own guys. But there's a component to this of, this is the first year, like this is the first roster. This is the first year that we're at where everyone else is at. And so I think you can see how we recruit when people want to come to Nebraska. Recruits want to come to Nebraska, but we just have to have what everyone else has. And we finally do that. Troy's worked his tail off. The Pete family's worked their tail off. And now RevShare, now we have maybe not what 10 other teams have, but we have about what everyone else has. And so, yeah, I don't want to start playing I respectfully out there, I don't want to start playing the roster game, because it takes a lot of money. There's $40 million rosters in college football right now. 40. So I'm just saying.
It's interesting how Rule gets there. He was asked a question about, hey, why didn't you go get Charmar Brown? Why weren't you able to keep Dante Dowdell? Basically, that was the question. Why don't you have a backup running back? Because Emmett Johnson's getting all the carries. In your 2 biggest games against Cincinnati, 69%. I think you played 69 plays. Against Michigan, 72 plays. Why don't you have a backup running back? You would like to think if you had Dante Dowdell or Charmar Brown, he wouldn't have played that many plays, because you would have had somebody. Charmar Brown already has close to 300 yards rushing, 4 TDs for Miami, averaging 5 yards a carry, something like that. You couldn't get him because Miami paid more money. You didn't get Dante Dowdell to stay because he went to Kentucky and got maybe $1 million. So it easily drifted into a conversation about money, which is a lot of the conversations that coaches have now. And I didn't think it actually would be as much as it is this year, but it's actually more because not only are you paying $20 million via rev share, which every team in college football now can do, a lot of teams are adding $20 million to that through NIL, and they've got $40 million rosters. Now, I don't know how many teams it is in college football, but he said 10 or more teams have more than what we have. $40 million rosters.
Here's my argument to that. Does the University of Indiana have a $40 million roster on their football team?
No, they are the outlier, though. How many other Indianas are there in college football?
How many does there have to be? Why is it not Nebraska?
Well, it should be.
We have better facilities.
It should be Nebraska.
We have a better fan base. We have a better everything.
Well, the season's not over.
Other than maybe coaching staff.
By the way, Indiana should have lost that game to Iowa.
Yeah,
Iowa picked it off and missed a chip shot field goal that would have won it. What I'm saying is, Indiana, I mean, they're the exception to the rule, and maybe they are. Maybe they have a booster that's paying the players 40. Maybe they're one of those 10 teams that are paying their roster 40 million. If not this year, they're going to have to step up next year. After last year, they made the college football playoff. Maybe they're one of those teams that's paying their team
possible
an extra, 30
I
to
don't
40
believe
million.
it, but they care a hell of a lot more about basketball than they do football.
Well,
I know
maybe
that.
not now. I mean, if you were to poll the fan base at Indiana, do you care more about a top 10 Indiana football team that made the college football playoff last year, or do you care more about Indiana basketball that's almost irrelevant every single year?
I think Tom Crean would argue with you on that, but
Tom Crean's gone.
Well, I get it. But
he was fired.
They weren't irrelevant when he was the head coach. I mean, his last few years weren't
until
great.
They were.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I mean, he was not the coach of the year. Was he the coach of the year? In Kurt Signetti, was he the coach? I think he was. He wasn't the national coach of the year.
I don't like him, but
I think he's weird.
Yeah.
I think he's really weird. But I just think that if you're spending a lot of money, the teams that are relevant in college football are Ohio State, probably spends more money than anybody in college football. Alabama's certainly up there. Texas is way, way up there. From everything you hear, Texas is number one. Are they getting the results? And that'll be the other conversation. Your money spent I'm sure there'll be a chart by the end of the year.
I think there probably already has been.
Yeah. What they're spending versus what they're getting. Nebraska can make an argument about what they're spending on the roster versus what they're getting. I mean, Rule said that at the start of the year. There are guys on this roster that we paid more than guys that were walk-ons that we didn't get the same number of snaps from.
Think about this. We just got the new commitment. We've got the number 6 ranked recruiting class in 2027 with only 3 players.
Which also scares me because can you hold it together by 2027?
But here's
2027 commitments. It's exciting, but I don't know how much it means.
But here's my point. For the sake of argument, in 2027, it's going to be a $55 to $60 million roster.
Yes.
So you've promised money that you haven't been given.
They're already paying some of those guys.
No, I get it, but you get my point. Like, how in the world? And I'm not saying that Nebraska is doing anything wrong here. All I'm saying is, how do you do this? Because not only is it uncharted waters, how difficult is it for a general manager or the people that are the number crunchers for every one of the major college football teams in America that are paying the players that want to play the game with the big boys? How difficult is it to plan on, hey, Trey Taylor, you know what? In today's market, you're worth, Dylan's worth $3 million a year, so we'll guarantee you $3.2 million a year in 2027. We'll start paying you a little bit now. Like, how do you do that? I cannot fathom how difficult it is to try to juggle everything, then keep the commitment. I mean, it's a game I don't want to play. I just want to. This is what I'm happy I'm the fan and not in the middle of it.
And it's very frustrating that they don't. If you're going to play like the NFL, and it feels like college football has drifted to the NFL model, with one exception, we don't know. We're guessing who the $40 million rosters are in college football. We're probably right on our guesses. It's probably Ohio State. It's probably Texas. It's probably Alabama.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Oregon.
It's not as actually, from what I hear, not as much Georgia as you would think.
Really? I think Florida State's in it. We know Texas A&M is in it.
Yeah.
I've heard, Texas Tech, with their new influx of money, is in it.
But my point, I guess, was we should know. If we're going to go to an NFL model, we should know what everybody's spending. There needs to be a salary cap.
Yeah.
There needs to be transparency in college football.
It's what he wants to do. Call Trev Alberts. Let him be the czar of college football or the commissioner.
They need one.
That's his goal in life, as we all know, or we all guess. The Power Four need to break away, make their own deal, and blow the NCAA off. And quite honestly, I don't even think they need to go to school. If they want to, they have that option. But if they don't, who cares? They're not semi-pro. They're not college student athletes anymore. They're professional athletes. Treat them as such. I don't care if they go to school or not. If they want to, they probably should. Okay, I think it should be there as an option.
I don't know that you can ever say, "Hey, they're just employees." But the university. They are employees of the university. They're probably going to become employees of the university.
Yeah.
So why not just pay them as employees and don't worry whether or not they have a high GPA, which apparently Nebraska does.
Yeah, and the fact that Coach Rule and the staff and the university focuses so much on the academics, I'm super proud of that. I think it's amazing and awesome. But at the same time, they're all paid professionals now. They shouldn't have to go to school if they don't want to.
I didn't even plan to talk about that, but I realized that Rule had mentioned it this week, and it stuck out to me. $40 million rosters, and we got to play that in the show. I didn't plan necessarily to play it right off the top, but we did. Jim Rose, former voice of Husker football, will be on the show. I want to ask him a question about high school football. I don't know if you read Tom Chattel's column in the Omaha World Herald today. It talked a lot about the Class A breaking away, at least the top half of the Class A, possibly not playing some of the bottom half schools. And they've already done that. The NSAA has allowed schools or tried to schedule teams in Class A that are more appropriate for other teams. If you're a weak team in Class A, they've tried to schedule you versus other teams in Class A that are really good. And then the West Sides, the Centrals, other schools in Class A that are periodically dominant. Omaha South is ridiculous. Have those teams play each other. And maybe you just go more regional. You go play a Kansas City team. Do you like that idea?
It's literally what we're talking about with NCAA football.
Yeah.
You got 135 Division I teams, and there are 65 of them that have zero chance. Zero chance of winning a national title.
So I want to talk about that a little bit later on. We'll talk recruiting, the latest commitment, Jabari Watkins to the 2027 class, along with Trey Taylor and Torrey Pittman. Nebraska is assembling a really good 2027 class, as you mentioned in the Husker headlines, top 6 right now. We'll talk a little bit about that with Bryan Munson of Husker Online. We'll talk to Tonia Tauke a little bit later on in hour number 2, about 6:25, about Husker volleyball. They remain undefeated, 12-0 and 2-0 in the Big Ten after their weekend sweep of both Michigan and Maryland over the weekend. So a lot of stuff. Our picks of density. I think you kicked my butt this weekend.
You and I split on almost every game last week, and I hit on all but one. So
yeah,
I'm
like, oh man, I did not do well.
Yeah,
but I've always said this in the past. Just do the opposite of my picks, and you'll do really well.
Or do what Tonia did when we brought her in to do this a couple of years ago. She just took whichever volleyball team would win, and I think she kicked both our butts. Yeah. So
we should have her back doing that again this year. That would be fun. Have her do the picks based on the volleyball teams. That would be fun. Let's get to break. Come back with Jim Rose, former voice of Nebraska football, morning show host on KFAB. Talk a little Husker football with Jim. And maybe some high school football. I'll ask him that question about Tom Chattel's article. Coming up next.
Mike Melby and Tom Stevens.
They've done studies, 60% of the time it works every time.
Husker Rewind on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind every Sunday, 5 to 7. Efforting Jim Rose, former voice of Husker football and morning show host on KFAB. Give us a call if he's listening right now. Jim, please call the studio line. Jim Rose, please call the studio line. I did want to talk to Jim and you about this story. You might have seen it in the Omaha World Herald. Tom Chattel, because it's a bye week, he wasn't talking about Husker sports this week. Wasn't talking about Husker football in particular. But he was talking about high school football blowouts. If all you have to do is, like on a Thursday night or Saturday night, look at some of the scores and you're going, my goodness, that is terrible. Bellevue West, for example, 78-0 over Omaha Buena Vista this weekend. And you saw a lot of scores like that, not just in Class A, but other classes. I think it was Waverly 42-0 over Standing Bear. New school, so you would understand that.
Waverly's pretty good this year, too.
Yeah, Waverly's really good. But Standing Bear, aren't they? They'll eventually move to Class A. I don't know.
Yeah, they're Class B now, and I believe Standing Bear chose to, when they became a school, take a year off essentially from competing,
right,
and just go through football practices. Maybe they scrimmaged a couple of other teams, etc. But
yeah. Well, I wanted to ask Jim about this because his son Jackson, I played golf with him, really good golfer, great baseball player, played at the University of Minnesota, was a high-level baseball player, but he played baseball at Westside, was recruited by Minnesota and played there. So it was Chattel in mind and this football thing. I'm sure this happened a lot as we welcome in Jim Rose. This probably happened, a lot of blowouts in baseball, right? And referring back to Tom Chattel's column today, a lot of blowouts in football, and he's talking about maybe some teams should drop high school football. How do you feel about that, Jim?
Oh, I don't agree with his premise at all. I think what you're suggesting here is that we give up on the academic, social, and athletic experience of going to high school. His suggestion, with all due respect to Tom, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I've known him for many, many years, he's way off base on this one, because what we're essentially saying with his premise is that, the experience of going to high school is really distilled down to how good is your sports team. And that's not what the high school experience is supposed to be about. Extracurricular activities are the other half of education, not the education. And when you suggest that, well, some schools shouldn't have it because we can't control transfers and it's not right. And, kids should, the kids' parents should be worrying about what kind of football program their kids are playing in. That's running up the white flag, and it's not right. And I don't agree with it. What we need is a very, very strict set of guidelines for allowing transfers.
Yeah, but
if you live in a district of a high school, that's where you go to high school, and let's make the high schools better.
In the article, though, he makes it abundantly clear that this isn't about transfers. There's teams that are that are super, super good right now that they've been playing together since they were in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th
Some
grade.
of them have a lot.
Some of them, but if you look at the number of transfers in high school football in Nebraska, transfers are not why these scores are happening. Not in any way, shape, or form.
I went to Lincoln High, and some of our best athletes just wouldn't go out for football or basketball. So I don't know what the answer is. I know the NSAA, to a certain extent, has said, okay, we'll take the lower class of the Class A schools that are not great at football, and we'll match them against other schools that are not great at football, and the best of the best will play each other. So they've already done that as well, unless you've asked the NSAA saying, hey, we want to schedule this team or that team, then you can do that.
Yeah, it's what's happened, fellas, and you're right. The total number of transfers for sports is probably negligible, although you would say that in some cases they are impact players. Certainly Millard South's best 3 players last year were transfers in. But the issue really involves where we place the emphasis on our children's education. And you can tie a lot of tentacles to this. when you see kids giving up their senior year of high school, they graduate early or they have enough credits to graduate in January, and they take off to go to college a semester early, what message is that sending? There are a lot of cool things that happen in your senior year of high school that you can never experience again. That should be the emphasis. Now, if you're going to be the starting quarterback for Nebraska in the fall, that's one thing. But if you're going to redshirt, why would you leave early? Because we've de-emphasized the value of a high school experience. We've turned these kids into these schools into sports factories, and I don't like it. I think it sells the kids short. I think they miss out on a lot of really important social activity that goes with being in high school. They're already, in many cases, being segregated from the general population because of their activity. And I don't think that's right either. I know it's kind of a pie-in-the-sky thought. I know it's an approach that many would disagree with, because parents will say, well, I need to make sure my kid has the best sports experience. Well, okay, that's a fair observation, but what are the chances of your kid playing professional sports? What are the chances if you lay the odds on your son becoming a professional baseball player or a professional basketball player? They're pretty light. And I would just offer, go back to the class of 2025, go back to the class of 2015 and look at the all-state, first-team all-state baseball team and figure out how many of those guys made it even to the minor leagues. And it's a pretty small number. And that's 10 some years ago.
Yeah.
I just believe this is a symptom of a problem in our culture and a problem in our society and priorities of parents today that I think we can address. Now, there's no question. You have your school has to be safe. Your school has to have a rigorous academic pattern. Your school has to be competitive and offer opportunities for kids to experience things like show choir or journalism and debate or sports. But this notion that we're going to drain certain schools of talent just because they don't win in football, well, let's make them better schools and let's make them better football programs. And there are a lot of issues in OPS, the Omaha Public Schools, that can be addressed administratively that would fix this.
I do want to talk about Nebraska football, but one more question, because you're a good person to ask about this, because your son played baseball at a really high level and then went to Minnesota, then played professional baseball. I don't think he made the major leagues, but he played at a really high level. So you wouldn't think about, if he didn't play at Westside at a good school, maybe moving him somewhere else. If he said, Dad, I really want to pitch somewhere else where they have a better coaching staff or better facilities.
Well, it's a good question, Tom. It's hard to know, because Jackson grew up with Westside kids. So, I mean, he grew up going to Westside, and he was at Westside from 7th grade all the way on. So he played Little League baseball, rec baseball, with 4 or 5 kids that were on the varsity when Westside won the state championships like they did. They had that run there where they were winning them all. Quite candidly, it would have been better for Jackson to play for somebody else in Omaha his senior year, because there was so much talent on that team. He didn't get a lot of chances. I think he had 2 starts during the season, regular season, if I recall. And then now when the Legion season began, there were so many more games, there was more opportunity. But if he had come to me and said, Dad, I'm just not going to break into that starting rotation. He was a setup guy, and he wasn't even a closer. He was really more of a setup guy in high school. If he'd come to me and said, I'm just not going to get a chance, then, I just said, well, dude, there's more. I would have counseled him and said, there's more to your baseball experience than whether you're the starter. And, you're playing with some of the very best players in the state, and you have a chance to play on one of the very best teams in the history of Nebraska high school baseball, which the 2014 Westside team was. They were 97-11 that year, and played in the national title game of the Legion World Series. And 10 years from now, when you guys get together for a reunion, nobody's going to pull the stat sheet out. Okay, nobody's going to say, okay, well, this guy Jake Myers played a lot more than Jackson Rose did, or Devin Steck had a better batting average than so and so. That's not going to happen at the reunion, but that championship is going to be there forever. That's what I would have counseled him on, to say nothing of how important it was academically for him to have the stability of staying in the same school.
Yeah.
But if we'd have looked at his baseball career and put that first, he would have played for somebody else. He'd have played for, heck, he'd have had a better chance playing for Prep that year, or Millard North, or Millard West, or any of those other really good programs in the Metro than he did for Westside. But, you know, our attitude was there's more to it, and Jackson's attitude was that there's more to it than just whether you play a lot as a high school kid. And we also thought he had some upside potential, which later, you know, became true when he was drafted by the Marlins and made it all the way to AAA. So, yeah, I mean, everybody's a little different, but we definitely would have pushed back against his idea that, you know, I need to go someplace where I'm going to play more.
Hey, Jim, we didn't have an opportunity to have you on last week to talk after the Michigan game. Some, I don't know, a little deja vu over some close games, and, you know, whether it's a false start penalty or just the offensive line not, you know, performing at the level that we'd hoped that they would. Can you give us kind of your quick breakdown of your thoughts after that game, especially after a week, to hear what the coaches had to say? And let me ask you the question: are the offensive line worries fixable?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. I don't know. I think I was very, very concerned about this game coming in, and folks who listen to me on KFB knew that. I said, you guys have no idea how physical these defensive ends are for Michigan. You know, there's no question Mr. Barham is the first-round draft choice. Because I was watching their Oklahoma game. You know, the night Nebraska was playing a Class A football team, Michigan was playing Oklahoma in Norman. And I was watching Mr. Underwood's arm, and I was watching the physical nature of their defense. And I thought, these guys might lose to Oklahoma because the Sooners played great that night. But they're good. They have people, okay? And they have a winning mentality. And I was just really impressed with how physical they were. And then I'm watching Nebraska play two teams that are, you know, very mediocre FCS level teams. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe we're going to be up to it and maybe not. Well, what we found out is that that's a real Big Ten football team now. They are big, strong, physical, fast, and mean. And so we just didn't adjust very well in a couple of key instances. You know, the offensive line is a question mark again. I don't think you can deny that. I think you're talking about a disappointment, because this was, number one, a point of emphasis in the transfer portal. The Huskers went out and spent $1.5 million on 2 transfers, and one of them only played, 5 snaps in the game against Michigan.
They had a false start.
Richard.
Yeah.
And he had a false start, but he only played 5 snaps. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, that one didn't work out. What about the rest of these guys? And we all saw the first half. But I think it once again gins up, I think, a fundamental question about how you win in the Big Ten. In fact, I'm watching the Chiefs game against the Ravens, and Tony Romo mentioned it. When you get inside the red zone, you have to be able to run the football. It's that simple now. When you get to the 20, 25-yard line, you got to be able to run the ball, because you lose the advantage of the field. You lose all of the space. And I'm just not convinced that Nebraska, its offensive philosophy, is geared toward running the football in any condition, much less being good at it inside the red zone. So what changes? I don't know. We don't even have a number 2 running back now. That's according to the coaching staff. We don't have a number 2 running back. That's a concern. That would be a concern to me. There's no question Dylan Raiola is a talented quarterback. He's got all the throws. I think he's got a lot of good receivers. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to set records on top of records this year, and probably win the Huskers a couple ball games with his arm. But I just think you got to be able to run the ball. And look at Oregon last night. Look at how effective Oregon was for 3 quarters at running the ball. Look at how effective Indiana was at running the ball. Granted, it's Iowa. Iowa's always going to have a tough defense. And look at Illinois. You take those 2 red zone fumbles away from them, they don't just beat USC, they clock USC. So this is the Big Ten. A physical conference with tremendously good coaches. You don't think that every other coach on Nebraska's schedule is going to take their very best athlete on defense and put him on the edge? Of course they are. They saw what Mr. Barnum did to our tackles, and that's what they're going to do. So we got to find a way to match that. And I hope it happens. I think there's some material on this team. I really like some of the guys. Ja'Cory Barney evokes images of Johnny Rogers. I mean, that's a special, gifted athlete. I'd love to see Nebraska create some sort of package for him. Hey, if we aren't going to run the ball, if we decided, maybe not even officially decided, we're not going to run the ball, go to the West Coast, go to the spread, go to the fast break, go to the whatever.
Yeah.
Spread everybody out, put 5 receivers on the field, and throw the ball down the field 5 to 10 yards. Let's not pretend. Let's do what we have. Let's use the material on the team.
Well, they may not have a choice. And by the way, I think they have an offensive coordinator that has some air raid experience if they decided to go in that way. You talked about the second running back. We don't know who that is. Rule was asked that question this week, and he basically said, we're going to take this week, the bye week, to find that out. And the question was also asked, well, why didn't you go buy one? Why didn't you go pay one? And we didn't have the money is his answer. And it drifted into a conversation about $40 million in roster payments for maybe the top echelon of teams in college football. But if I would have told you that 5 years ago, $40 million rosters in college football, what would you have told me?
Yeah, I'd have said, then there's just no control whatsoever over the finances of the elite programs. I don't know. I'm not sure I buy that as a fan. Do I really buy that? They spent a ton of money. Look at the guys they brought in. Okay, Deshaun McCullough came in. I think Deshaun McCullough is worth whatever they're paying him. He's been dynamite. Marshall had a bad game. Pritchett, obviously, not great. Maybe a bust. Maybe he'll turn it around, get something together here at the end of the year, but that's $1 million bust right there. And now they went after Charmar Brown, the kid from Prep, who's having a dynamite year running the ball for Miami. But what about recruiting? How about the guys that they've recruited out of high school over the last 3 years? We have not developed a single running back after Emmett Johnson. I think these are skeptical questions. If we're at a point now where we literally on a year-in basis have to say, well, that position absolutely has to have a transfer. How are we going to get a transfer in here for running back if Emmett Johnson was the clear number one? Which kid is going to say, all right, yeah, I'm going to Nebraska. They're going to pay me $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, whatever the number is, and be the backup? When Miami says you'll be our feature back, this is a challenge, and it's a coaching challenge, and it's an administrative challenge on how to manage your roster. But to not have a backup running back in year 3 of the program without considering the fact that we've not had massive defections, I think that's a concern. I think that should gin up legitimate questions by the media and the fans.
They've got to raise $700 million for a stadium renovation. They've got to raise more money to pay their roster next year. It's always going to be a cycle where you're going to have to come up with the cash to pay the players and to pay for renovations and that type of thing. With that in mind, what does Nebraska need to show, maybe win-wise or whatever you think, as far as this program going forward to get that type of money raised for the program going forward?
Well, I think Nebraska financially is in pretty good shape. Bill Byrne inherited a mess. Bill Byrne fixed it 30-some years ago when he implemented the stadium seat license program where you had to donate for seats, and a tremendous amount of money comes in every year in seat licenses at Nebraska, in addition to club seats and in addition to the suites and all of the other revenue streams, to say nothing of the $80 million that comes in thanks to the Big Ten network. I don't know when the last time Nebraska had a performance audit from its athletic department to see where all the money goes. Where is it? Are they putting it in savings? Is the stadium renovation really critical to winning? Because if you talk to kids, as long as you have a competitive level of facilities, and I think after the Osborne Performance Center was built for $165 million, it's hard to say Nebraska is not competitive in facilities for football. The kids will say, if the facilities are competitive and the stadium isn't falling down, we really don't care, whether there's a concourse or whether there's standing wells in the South Stadium, or how many restrooms concession stands are available in the North End Zone. And so really, what is the impact on wins that a stadium renovation has? I think that's a legitimate question. Now, if you want to turn the stadium into something more than just a place to house football games, now we're talking a different conversation. If you want to make it more concert friendly or event friendly, or you want to build bars and restaurants or game rooms in there, if that's the case, well, that's a different conversation. But if it's about football, truly, I mean, how much of that impact is going to have on wins and losses? And maybe that's a broader question. Do we really need to spend $700 million, on a stadium renovation? What's that going to take? I mean, I'm not an architect. I'm not a design engineer. I'm not a contractor. So I'm just thinking like a fan thinks. But to me, the broader issue is, are we channeling resources into players? If the game is now, how much is it going to take on your roster to win the conference championship? That's the broader question, and that's the priority. If football is the priority, and clearly it is at Nebraska.
Yep. Good stuff, Jim. We appreciate the time. Have you recovered from the route at Bethpage? Are you okay?
Oh my God,
that was terrible.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. In fact, that's tomorrow's commentary for me. You had the losers at the Ryder Cup, and then you had the U.S. Ryder Cup team. The losers was the United States of America. The behavior at that golf course.
Yes.
I mean, this is something you'd see at an MMA fight. Okay, this was not a golf crowd. It's as if we were going up against the 9/11 hijack. This was really embarrassing, and I mean, the guys played hard today. They made a furious rally today, but the first 2 days were embarrassingly bad.
Yeah.
And the fans were even worse.
I'm not sure why you put it in New York and expect anything better than that, but there you go.
After when the PGA was there a few years ago, and Brooks Koepka was treated like a criminal by those guys in his final round, and Rory McIlroy, he didn't help. What was it, a few years ago, when McIlroy pretty much brashly predicted that the Europeans would win it in 2025. So people put that on their locker room walls for 2 years.
Great stuff, Jim. We appreciate the time.
You bet, fellas. Thanks. Have a great week.
There you
Thanks,
go. Jim Rose, former voice of Husker football, morning show host at KFAB. That was disgraceful. I mean, I'm not a Rory McIlroy fan, but some of the language going on to Rory was just, I was ashamed of it. Not that I think that golf deserves special treatment.
Well, embarrassing ourselves on a world stage is kind of what America's about these days, and those fans proved it. So,
well, yeah, that was. Let's face it, Europe has better golfers right now. They just have better golfers overall. You have Scheffler, but not enough depth on the American side, and he didn't perform very well.
Scheffler was awful.
He was not very good this weekend, but he also didn't have any help. Oh well. I stopped watching. The good thing is I stopped watching after day one.
Well, then you wouldn't have got your hopes up as the afternoon went on this afternoon, and then they just fall short.
It's just like being a Vikings fan. I stopped watching after halftime. That way you don't get upset.
Yeah.
Because I've broken a few TVs over the years. I believe you know that about me, Mike.
Yes.
Let's get the break. Come back with more. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind.
has gone south. I mean, the weather has gone south, or whatever it is. It's cold enough to make a brass monkey clink, I'll tell you that.
On Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby, Husker Rewind. We've got a lot of show left. Bryan Munson, Husker Online, at the top of the hour, talking about recruiting. And obviously, he'll talk Husker football as well. And then Tonia Tauke Dorn, former Husker volleyball star and head coach at Nebraska 1. We love having Tonia on the show. We also like doing the Big Ten Blitz.
The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz.
We go through every game and then rank the teams. Oregon over Penn State. What a game. Went to overtime. They went at 30-24 in 2 overtimes. Oregon picks off a pass late from Drew Aller and wins it in the second overtime. Number 6 versus number 3. It lived up to the billings. Penn State was actually down 17-0 and came back. But the Ducks are now 12-0 in Big Ten play, and they did it in front of 111,000 Nittany Lion fans clad in white. That was impressive.
The dude's interception in overtime, I guarantee you he has never and will never, ever again jump that high in his life.
It was impressive.
Oh, my goodness.
Their roster is loaded. Talking about spending money, Phil Knight has some of it to spend on a roster, and it's not just for the jerseys. Couple of touchdown passes. It wasn't the best night for Drew Aller, and I still wonder about him. He played okay, threw a couple of touchdown passes. Devontae Ross had 2 of them. I think both of the touchdown passes, a 35-yarder and a touchdown late. But Dante Moore had a great night. He went 29 of 39, 248, 3 TDs. And Aller was only 14 of 25, 137, a couple of TDs and an interception. Oregon is off this week before hosting Indiana, number 11 Indiana, while Penn State is at UCLA next week.
The Fighting PJ Flex out of Minnesota knock off Rutgers at home, 31-28. Drake Lindsey, a freshman, threw for 324 yards and 3 TDs on Saturday. He went 31 of 41, including 23 of 28 in the second half. The Golden Gophers, without their top 2 running backs, managed to rush for 35 whopping yards. So they put it on the shoulders of their freshman QB, and he came through. Gophers improved to 3-1, 1-0 in the Big Ten.
Drake Lindsey's pretty good.
Yeah, he is.
He's just a freshman. He's really good.
Scarlet Knights are 3-2 overall, 0-2 in the Big Ten. And I believe Minnesota is at Ohio State next week, and Rutgers has a bye.
Number 23, Illinois. What a bounce back after getting thrashed 68-10 last week to Indiana. They beat USC at home 34-32 after getting blown out. As I mentioned, by the Hoosiers last week. Illinois raced out to a 31-17 lead. USC came back, in fact, took the lead 32-30. Then Illinois drove the field, kicked a 41-yard field goal, and won it. Impressive. USC has a bye before hosting Michigan, while Illinois travels to Purdue next week.
I hate to say that I called that one, but
you were really good. I hate to have to go through the picks of density this week because I truly am dense. I've told you, though, before, take the opposite. If you go the opposite of my picks, although I did get the Iowa one just because Indiana took a safety from 50 yards out. Did you see that?
I did. I thought it was awesome.
That was hilarious.
That's good coaching right there.
That's really good coaching.
Fernando Mendoza threw a 49-yard touchdown pass to Elijah Surratt with 1:28 to play to give number 11 Indiana a 2015 win over Iowa on Saturday, the closest win of the season for the Hoosiers, and it was one that Kurt Signetti called a gut check, and his players agreed. We have never been tested like that. Offensive lineman Pat Coogan said, we have so much room to get better, and that is the best feeling.
Iowa had that game won. They pick off the pass. They had, what was that, a 35-yard field goal somewhere in the neighborhood from Drew Stevens, who never misses a field goal. Then he missed one.
Yep.
Then they give up the drive in overtime. And Indiana, say what you want about Kurt Signetti because he's a weirdo. He truly is weird. But he's a good football coach.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got them rolling. Both teams have a bye next week.
Caleb Komalafe ran for 119, and he also had a TD as Northwestern beat UCLA. Of course, everybody does that. UCLA is 0-4. They've already fired Deshaun Foster. But Northwestern is 2-2. They win in the game 17-14. I don't know what else to say because these are two teams that are just awful. UCLA just happens to be more awful than Northwestern. Of course, I don't know. Northwestern sometimes sneaks up and beats somebody they shouldn't.
Yeah, like Nebraska.
Nebraska plays them later this year.
I know. If you're Tony White, I know like he was in the running when Deshaun Foster.
I wonder if they make a call to Tony White.
But here's the question: Why? Why would you go to a school that's in a league that has 18 teams, and you have the smallest pool of NIL money? You have the worst fan base.
Neuheisel complained
not the
about
worst. The fan base with the most apathy. I don't want to say they're the worst. I don't know who the worst would be. I think it would be more along the lines of behavior. But just like the fans don't care.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like we're talking about.
They've had good coaches. I thought Neuheisel was okay. I thought Mora was okay. They both complained about not having enough money, enough resources, which is crazy when you're thinking about UCLA. They've got to have rich donors.
But do they care about football?
They don't care about football.
I don't know. But at any rate, it's just crazy. Ohio State, number 1 ranked in the country, went out to Seattle, knocked off the Washington Huskies 24-6. Julian Sayin, 22 out of 28 for 208, couple of touchdowns. And Bo Jackson, he unretired. He is now playing for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Is that his son? That's not his son.
I don't know. He had 80 yards on the ground for the Buckeyes as they roll. A little bit of a test for him, but I thought they'd win by a little bit more, but still a big W. They take on Minnesota at home next week, and the Washington Huskies next week. A little bit of a road trip.
Yeah,
they're going to be playing in Piscataway, in College Park in Maryland, taking on the Terrapins at a 2:30 kickoff. But that's a nice little 3,200-mile flight for Washington next week.
So how do you rank the teams? Ohio State, I still have them number 1, although you could argue Oregon might be better, just because they have a more experienced quarterback in Dante Moore. Julian Sayin looked really good yesterday in the win over Washington, but what does that mean? So I have Ohio State number 1, Oregon number 2, Penn State number 3, Indiana 4. Do you agree with that?
Not at all. Indiana 3 by a long shot. I don't think Penn State's 4 even. I mean, I would put Michigan and
they play each
Illinois.
other in a couple weeks, don't they? I think Penn State, Indiana play each other.
I've never been a believer in James
So you
Franklin.
would flip those two teams?
I'd flip those two teams for right now.
And then Michigan 5th? Do you like that?
Michigan, Illinois, kind of right there, tied for 4th, tied for 5th, and then the rest
Does it really matter after that?
After that, until you get to UCLA.
Well, Illinois.
I don't know.
Yeah, Michigan, Illinois, and then Iowa, USC, Minnesota, Nebraska are kind of all the same.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters after that.
Over under on, I'll throw a half in, 4.5 weeks before Luke Fickell gets fired at Wisconsin.
Oh, I'm going to say
under.
I'm going to say under that. I think 3.5 weeks. I think maybe next week.
Myself.
He might be fired, right? He might be on the phone with the athletic director as we speak. All right. Let's come back with hour number 2 at Bryan Munson of Husker Online. We'll talk a little recruiting with Mike Melby and Bryan coming up next.
Stevens, old enough to remember Nebraska's national titles.
Oh, they don't have him yet. Look at Tommy Frazier. How many tackles can one man break? Touchdown.
Yet young enough to remember what they had for lunch.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now! The meatloaf!
On Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
Already into hour number 2. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. Big thanks to Jim Rose in hour number 1. Yet to come, Tonia Tauke Dorn. We'll talk some Husker volleyball with her. Right now, we bring in Bryan Munson. Haven't had him on for a while, but recruiting news. So first person I thought about was Bryan, as Nebraska gets a commit from 2027 target 4-star receiver Jabari Watkins from Thomas County Central, Thomasville, Georgia. A big get, Bryan, for Nebraska football.
Big time playmaker, right? I mean, and by the way, guys, it's good getting a chance to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I love the intro. I'm old enough to remember the national championships, and I'm also old enough to, or young enough to remember what the next line of that movie was.
Yeah.
And
what you had for lunch? What'd you have for lunch?
Well, what I had for lunch?
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of snacked. I just had some chips and queso and chips and salsa, man. But no, the next line of that movie would have been, "I never know what she's doing. What is she doing?"
Well, there you go.
I think Nebraska is off and running in 2027, and I think that's what everybody is really excited about. With this commitment from Watkins into the 2027 class, they have actually jumped into the top 3, which is pretty amazing. Kind of given where especially the 2026 class is at, which is in the 60s and the bottom in the conference and the team rankings on Rivals. There's a lot of things to be very optimistic about when it comes to this next class. And I think that, having a guy like Trey Taylor gets it all out on the right foot. He's one of the best, if not the best, peer recruiter I've ever seen before. He's really a guy that I don't think for the first time ever that the fishbowl, that goes along with playing quarterback in Nebraska is not going to get to him. I don't think the stage is ever going to be too bright.
What is it about? I mean, you've obviously gotten to know Trey Taylor a little bit, the quarterback from St. Louis, high profile guy, 4-star guy, borderline, almost 5-star, could be a 5-star by the time it's all said and done. What makes him so good as a recruiter, you think?
I believe his sincerity is there. His story is pretty unbelievable, actually, if you think about it, because he got kind of asked to take the visit, to Nebraska, and he didn't really know why he was going there. He was kind of going with the flow, yeah, okay, I'll take a look at it. And all of a sudden he gets off the flight and he's like, oh, there's a town here that has buildings, and it's not kind of what I expected. Okay, let's go to Lincoln. And just everything, I think, just kind of exceeded expectations and really kind of added up to where it was the right place for him. And I know it was a tough decision between Nebraska and LSU to kind of get him, but I just believe that when he gets a chance to go sidebar with guys like Kennedy Brown or, other players that'll be there in the 2027 or 2028 classes, and they get a chance to talk to him about why he was there, I just think he has this really incredible, honest story about how it just kind of, I didn't expect myself to fall in love with it, at first. And all of a sudden it just everything just kind of added up, and everybody just needs to see it. That's what he keeps telling everybody. You need to go see it yourself. There's nothing that he can do for you over the phone. It's precisely what the Nebraska coaching staff, says. We got to get you here. We got to get you on a visit. You got to come see it. There's no way to duplicate that ever, getting to Lincoln. And I also think the game day visits in the fall, you really can't do anything about that either. You've got to find a way to get in there to, get that as part of your overall process now. And everything's been slid, back to the left so badly. You got to get juniors to come in, the year before they start making their official visit plans. So back to Watkins really quick, big time playmaker. I think Nebraska's going to have several of them actually in this class. And I think that Trey's, very connected to several guys around the country. And I think that things are going to be really fun and interesting. and kind of a wild ride when it comes to the 2027 class Nebraska's putting together right now.
Bryan Munson from Husker Online joining us on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and Text line. Are any of those really talented players and playmakers in the 27 class or maybe even the 26 class running backs?
Well, actually, I'm going to have a story tonight on Isaiah Rogers, who was there last weekend, and he is a big-time running back from out east. He's a player that Trey has referred to several times over social media about, how he's trying to work Isaiah so hard to get him to join him in the class. Another player that he's really started to mention as well on social media is Omaha Central running back Kylon Haney. Haney, who has had a couple of really big weeks the last couple of weeks, he was pivotal and crucial to Central beating Westside on Friday. So I think that's maybe what Nebraska fans kind of want to hear too, because I think when you put Rogers' film on, there's some lightning. And then I think when you put Haney on, that Haney's got some lightning, but he's got a lot of thunder going to him. So you've got an ability, I think, to keep adding explosive playmakers, but I think you always have to have kind of a change of pace back, somebody that doesn't do exactly everything to say, somebody that has a little bit different strengths, maybe the kind of guy that as the defense is standing there on the field to kind of see who's coming in from the sideline, maybe they groan a little bit when they see the physical guys coming in, because Haney he's put together. Like, this guy's, repping 225 14 times as a sophomore. So he's benching over 300 pounds. He's 205 pounds right now, 5'11", and he's quick. Like, his film, you would really kind of think that maybe he might be a little bit lumbering a little bit more. Not at all. And he gets involved like in the return game. So I think that, those are two guys at running back that are at the top of the Huskers list.
It seems, Bryan, that maybe running back would be an easy position to evaluate. Maybe it's not, because you could drop down a class and everybody's running for touchdowns, or offensive lineman in some cases. If you're not an offensive tackle, quarterbacks may be pretty easy. What's the hardest position for you to evaluate as a recruiting guy?
I think it's probably, I don't want to jump all the skill position guys in there, because you have to remember so much about, like, what you just kind of mentioned. Like, the context that you have to kind of remember is, where they're playing ball, number one. What level of competition are they at, number two? Maybe the other thing is too, is that this isn't going to be a totally polished player, and you got to kind of just see it and trust your development there at your school to kind of trust him. Like Claude Mpuma, while his film is great, what's really great about Claude,
the offensive lineman, the offensive tackle,
the offensive tackle that's part of the 2026 class. So Claude, he's only played football for a couple of years. He was really more of a basketball guy. So when you watch his film, you go, dang, that's a big guy and he moves really well. But what isn't there are the things I think Nebraska feels like they can put in place, and they just see his potential as being, the ceiling is really high with a guy like that, versus, maybe another guy or two that's maybe cut from a little bit different of a cloth, like maybe like a Kennedy Brown, who was just in this last week in the 2027 offensive tackle. Maybe he's a guy that's a little bit more ready-made, and could be like a guy that potentially could come in, and maybe he's rotating in, maybe he's seeing some time here and there, but if he can get in and get adjusted to things. I think that you kind of have to understand the setting, the competition, maybe where things are kind of at. Are you evaluating the guy as like a quick fix, or kind of guy that's going to have to learn something and be potentially part of the picture in year one? Or is this a guy that you really don't think is going to be around, in part of your picture until like year two, because he needs that development? So I think I lean still more towards the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman, because I think it's really tough to kind of judge those guys, and because there's just not a flat basis for competition. And you've seen like guys that come from like an offense like what Grant Bricks ran in high school. You really have to then see where he can be in 2 years, versus a guy like Gatua, maybe a little more sophisticated of an offense, not a guy that was going to be an Army All-American, but a guy that's maybe a little bit more ready because he's seen some of that stuff before. So that all kind of weighs into it. I think there's big, strong potential. I think there's guys that also come in, a little bit more ready to go.
Husker Online's Bryan Munson joining us on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and Text line. Tom and I were discussing the $40 million comment by Matt Rule earlier last week with Jim Rose earlier between ourselves. And the 2027 class alone, hey, they're up to third now. We thought it was sixth, and thank you for the breaking news. They're third. But the point that I made is I am so happy. I'm a numbers guy. I love getting in and crunching numbers and doing all that stuff. I am so happy. Part of my job is not figuring out how to deal with 40 million, 30 million, 20 million and spread it out. Because right now they're guaranteeing guys like Trey Taylor and Troy Pittman X amount of dollars to come here, but they don't know how much they're actually going to have. How difficult is it, as far as you know, or what do you know about that process and then how they do the accounting with this?
Oh, they have to also pay them while they're in high school, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention. Like a guy like, Torrey that's now in the class, he could technically already get into an agreement with Nebraska, and Nebraska could potentially front end load, what kind of their deal is going to be. Like he would likely be making some amount of money like right now, and Nebraska is front end loading that into basically his junior year. So that's something that's a little bit different. And honestly, from the amounts, I mean, we have some folks, with On3 that get into the spaces of working more with like the agents to understand how much things are, how much people are kind of making. I tend to kind of stay far away from that stuff, but I mean, I think what's really, maybe the one thing that is the most interesting to me about like a Torrey Pittman is he really had an eager fondness for, committing to Nebraska when he did, because he honestly could have set the market for himself after a strong junior season. And then he could have really drove up the market based on, other guys coming off the board, maybe how well he did, maybe taking visits. You can always kind of float things in your comments and stuff like that, and your agents are working behind the scenes. He could have really drove things up. He could have drove things up with Nebraska, could have drove them up with everybody else that was considering him. And he just decided, like, Nebraska's always been home. I'm staying home. And I think that's got to be music to Matt Rule's ears, who obviously wanted to keep a guy like that home. But I mean, I think, yes, the $40 million, the guaranteed money, I think things get really complicated when things kind of go back to like, write the checks and you try to figure out like how much these guys are actually participating, on the current roster and whether or not like it makes any sense. And I think people probably know what I'm kind of getting at when I'm talking about that stuff. But yeah, they're front end loading now, a few of these guys, that way, things can kind of, it'll help them out in the long run, as they can kind of get into, giving them some money up front. Plus it's kind of more or less, it's like this, you're entering into a contract. It makes it really difficult to decommit because you're really all of a sudden hooked into that school because they've already started to pay you going back in your high school days.
Bryan Munson, Husker Online, our guest. I talked to a few guys at the 95 National Championship celebration, and the conversation of money came up, and more than one said, man, the money we could have made. $40 million for a roster. Can you believe? I mean, if I had told you that 5 years ago, what would you have said, Bryan? About?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we could see it coming, but I didn't know it was going to be this big.
No, I don't think anybody did, because I mean, the way that things kind of started, where they finally got like their little checks from EA Sports, once they had their name, image, likeness kind of, they went back and kind of gave them their money. I think it was like for $25, like, go get yourself a Runza and $10 worth of gas. Like, good luck to you. But I don't think anybody had any idea what kind of numbers all this stuff was kind of talking about, that we were talking about here. So yeah, it's massive what they're doing, and I think the importance obviously is here that these kids, and they are kids, they still develop good habits and understand still what the strong value of a dollar is. Because I have a hard time understanding or thinking about, if I had that kind of money in college, how could I have ever appreciated anything else down the line?
Yeah.
And that's maybe the one part to me that really still confuses me on how much people will be able to kind of move forward when they get into the normal lives.
Real quick, I want to follow up on something that you said about the difficulty for a player to decommit once they've started being paid. That is the point. They've been paid X amount of dollars to come to the University of Nebraska in 2027, and in November of 2026, they go, you know what? I'm out.
Can they make money from more than one school at a time?
What happens there? Is it in those contracts that they have to pay it back? Does the school they eventually commit to have to cover that cost?
Yeah.
No, they from what it's been explained to me in my conversations, they would have to basically reimburse the university what's been paid out to them, and then obviously then there's a termination of a contract. So there's a deal there that's going away. And the amount that's been paid out has been paid out basically on some sort of a future, arrangement that you're going to go to Nebraska, and they're deciding to front end load everything then and there. So that part right there is a part I don't think a lot of people are giving much thought to it, because you're not getting money for nothing. You're just getting money for something that you have not done yet. And that contract is your signing bonus, or however you want to kind of call it. But basically then it ties you back to that school, and you should not be getting paid from two schools. You are locked into basically that one school. So if something happened and you are signed and sealed and delivered, and all of a sudden 6 months later, 8 months later, you decide, hey, USC decided to come back and give me twice as much as what Nebraska is. Well, you could probably pay the money back, very quickly based on what USC is giving to you. But I think that obviously then too, there's difficulty there because of the contract, and obviously because something is due back to the university, and they're going to want it back as quickly as possible because they thought that they had a deal with you. It was kind of locking you into a recruiting class.
Now, you mentioned, and I apologize in advance to everybody for this, but you mentioned that they're not getting money for nothing, but are the chicks for free.
If they have Brothers in Arms in their tape deck, they have to have the actual album by Dire Straits.
Okay, thank you.
All bets are off.
He got
Thank
the
you
reference.
for clarifying.
He got the reference. Brilliant. Bryan, we always appreciate the time. This is a new world of college football that I never would have guessed that we're going. I mean, obviously basketball is in a similar circumstance as well.
Yep.
It feels like we need a lawyer just to mitigate this discussion.
I don't think, look, guys, and I don't think everybody's thought everything through. And that's maybe the scariest part about all of it. The uncertainty still, we're playing wacky mad libs right now with all these different scenarios and what we think could possibly happen. And every time I've done that before, it seems like I thought I had it right, and I had to go back, turn around and update myself. So yeah, it's confusing. And I think the future of college football is still very cloudy, very confusing as we move ahead.
You thought you had it right, but you didn't. My dad used to say, I was wrong once. I thought I was wrong, but it turned out I was right. My dad was kind of an egomaniac. Anyway, good stuff there. Bryan, we always appreciate the time. We'd love to have you back at some point. We should ask one thought about homecoming. How do you feel about the rest of the season? Nebraska is 3-1, tough loss to Michigan, but how do you feel going forward?
Well, I think a lot of people, I think there was some knee jerk there that, the game maybe wasn't as close as what the score indicated. I wasn't as impressed with Michigan as what everybody else was. I thought Nebraska lost up front, but I'm very impressed with Dylan Raiola. I think everything still is there in front of them. I think that they can still get to 9 wins. I think it's going to be tough. I think that they need to figure out what's going on with the number 2 at the running back position. I think they have figure out some things in the secondary, particularly at safety. But I think that they've got some pieces to kind of work with. I think that also, here's the other part, and I'll get off the phone. Cincinnati's turned out to be a lot better team than what people gave them credit for at first. So I think that you had a much tougher litmus test at first. You do lose that game to Michigan, but I think it sets you up to understand, like, you've seen some pretty good opponents so far. You took care of business there, particularly against the passing game in Cincinnati. Now, how do you kind of navigate the rest of the Big Ten schedule with, like, Minnesota and Maryland before you get those really big matchups like USC and Penn State.
Yeah, that Cincinnati win's turning out to be maybe a good win. Of course, they beat Kansas this weekend. Their only loss to Nebraska. We'll see. That's why they play the games. Good stuff, Bryan. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, guys.
There you go.
See you,
Bryan Munson of Husker Online. Man, that discussion about money is crazy. I guess I didn't know that if you're paying a kid in high school, that binds you to the school, or at least you have to pay that money back if you decommit and commit somewhere else.
Common sense says that would be the case. However, as we know, common sense sometimes doesn't apply, especially when it comes to the murky waters of NIL money.
If you're getting a Torrey Pittman or a Trey Taylor, you want some guarantees that they're going to not just commit to the school, but end up at the school.
Yeah.
Especially when you're 2027 commits. I just didn't know how all that worked out.
I was happy that he explained that part of it. I've always kind of wondered. Again, you assume common sense takes over.
Isn't it crazy that we don't talk about that more? I think everybody's a little queasy when talking about these dollar amounts that these kids are making. And so nobody talks about it, so nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, you got mom and dad and 2 kids, and the household income is, $95,000 to $120,000. Now you're talking about $3 million a year for an 18-year-old.
It's crazy. Let's get to break. Come back with Tonia Tauke, of course, head coach at Nebraska 1 and former Husker volleyball star. We'll talk a little Husker volleyball coming up next.
Sports.
Jones runs behind a blocker, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 15. He's gone. Touchdown. Touchdown. Touchdown.
Husker Rewind with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens on Lincoln's Husker Radio. 1499.3 KLIN.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind. That's Tom Stevens.
Hello.
I am Mike Melby, and joining us now on the Hunt Irrigation Talk and Text Line, head coach of Nebraska 1 volleyball and former Nebraska middle blocker, an expert analyst in breaking down all volleyball, not just right. Nebraska.
Yes.
Miss Tonia Tauke Dorn. Tonia, how have you been?
I've been great. It's been a nice fall season, and it's a great time to be alive as a middle that's powerful and dominant. Like the world we live in right now, be a middle.
Okay,
right?
So I have to follow this up. Too. Yes, I have to follow this up. Everybody's talking Andy Jackson, shoe-in, first-team All-American, potential player of the year candidate nationally. Has Rebecca Alec outplayed her so far this year? I mean, not knocking either one, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, somebody asked me what my dream team was, and for middles, it's just Becca Alec and Andy Jackson. And I think the other thing is just that they just make each other better.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like Becca doing this opens it up for Andy doing that. And then, I don't know, I just feel like they are saying the right things. They are, just being good humans. They are, their social media presence and, their captains. And they were both interviewed on the post game, and just listening to them like bounce each other, off each other. It was great. So it's like you can say Andy Jackson's the best middle, but I feel like her and Becca tandem is just like perfection right now.
Yeah. Rebecca had 13 kills, which was a career high. She hit 750, and then Andy had 9 kills, but hit 900. It feels like Rebecca is really good at the free ball. Or really good at the net, while Andy kind of needs a set, but they're both so good. I mean, when you need a point, I always think just set Andy. I mean, just set her. But Rebecca is so good if it's a free ball at the net, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, nothing passes Becca.
Yeah.
I mean, just like her court awareness, her IQ, how she watches the ball, how she anticipates what's going to happen, and she just is there. And she hangs in the air and throws those. If somebody's going to try to, if you're going to free ball, it better be nice and high.
Yeah.
Hey, can I ask you about, I'm going to make what I think is a decent correlation here between frustration, disappointment, how you handle it, and moving forward. Danny Busboom obviously was made a libero, wasn't a huge fan of it when she played for John Cook, came through it. Ultimately, here she is 20 years later as the head coach of Nebraska. She's got 2 equally talented liberos that have different skill sets. One's a little better here, one's a little better there. But those 2, I believe, much like Andy and Rebecca, Olivia Mauk and Lainey Choboy seem to fuel each other, and they definitely realize, at least it seems like it from the outside, hey, I'm not passing the best right now. Maybe you need to wear the jersey, even though Danny's the one making that change. How do you feel those 2 have played this year and fed off of each other, even though they both have had matches that weren't their best?
Right. I mean, I think you, as a coach, Lainey is exactly who you would draw out on paper as the best libero you would have ever had. She comes out of nowhere. She takes over the whole court. Her defense is electric. She fires everybody up. And so it's really hard for me to not have her be libero, because that's how I would, if I needed to put out the best libero physically, have a machine that spits out the best libero, it would be Lainey Choboy. But Olivia Mauk just brings a whole level of calmness. She has a great platform. She has a perfect touch on the ball. She has a really nice serve. And she just adds this layer of serve receive that is unmatched. And so you just want her in there all the time just for her serve receive. And so it's definitely a hit, yin and yang we got going on. We have the best serve receiver and the best defender. And so it's just too bad that one of them couldn't be both of those things. But there's moments where there's a tip on, and Olivia doesn't go for it. I'm like, man, Lainey would have had that. And then Olivia passes this ball, and you're like, well, Lainey probably would have gotten aced on that ball. You know what I mean? So it's you go back and forth, and it's just which one do you want? And so I think Danny did a good job of giving them both a chance, and seeing how the team reacted to having both of them in. And I think when you have middles that are the team captains that are getting numbers like that, then serve receive passing becomes more important than the defense piece that Laney brings.
Tonia Tauke Dorn, former Nebraska volleyball star, middle blocker, and head coach at Nebraska 1. Nebraska sweeps the weekend, sweeping Michigan and then Maryland. Although it was after set 2, I think they won 27-25 against Maryland. Maybe you saw it on TV. Danny did not look pleased, and John Cook mentioned it on television. What do you think she said to them in locker room after set 2 on Friday or Saturday?
I was at the game, and so it's hard for me where I sit. I sit like off of Danny's left ear, from when they switch sides, and then I'm on the Maryland side more than I am on the Husker side. So I never get to see what the coaches say. My parents actually sit right across from where the team starts, and so they have almost earshot of Danny. But so when I get to sit in their seats, I get to see what's going on. But it was hard to tell what the coaches were saying or bodies or anything, but it just really came down to it's hard to be dialed in against a team like Maryland that you see on paper that you're just going to wipe the floor with them. And when your coach is like, okay, in the second set we're going to run a 6-2 and we're going to have the other outside come in and we're going to have the other middle or whatever, it's really hard to just not be like, oh, okay, it'll be easy. And I feel like we had that letdown in serve receive, if that makes sense. So yeah. I think what I was probably most frustrated with was I'm the coach. I can make changes. I still have to pass the ball. I didn't make any changes in the passers. The passers all stayed the same. Harper stayed out there. Laney's still going in. Olivia's still going in. You guys are our primary pass to do stuff. Like, I want these girls to get this opportunity. What are you doing? Just because we're playing a team that you don't think is good enough means you can take a moment off? Like, that's just not how this works. And so that would be what I would have noticed is just we had a letdown on passing in the second set.
Yeah. Coming in this year, a couple of freshmen that we expected to see into the rotation, T. Sigler and Virginia Adriano. I'm not sure that I know I didn't expect that Virginia Adriano was to elevate her game to the point that she has through 12 matches. Toria Sigler has been spectacular, I guess, kind of, to me, expected. What are your thoughts on those two and what they've brought to the team this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sigler definitely has the platform touch. Obviously she made the ESPN top 10, that one with the one play, even though I would like to normalize that volleyball doesn't have to dive through a table or jump over a wall to get into the top 10. Can we just have like the amazing swing from Andy Jackson where the whole place just went like, wow, like, yeah. Can that be a top 10 play? Or do we really have to dive over like people and like risk broken bones to get on the ESPN top 10? Just throwing it out there. But I mean, she definitely has some swag too. I mean, she's dancing. She's just got a really good personality, but her platform touch is just natural. I thought Adriana didn't play as good in the Maryland game, but I remember the talk on the radio said that Maryland is traditionally one of the best blocking teams, and so she probably just didn't have the space in the block like she normally would because they're so good at blocking. But it sounded like they changed the set height and gave her a little bit more height, and I think she's probably just kind of settling into eating ranch dressing at every meal. So it's going to take a hot minute for her to be like kaboom on every ball, right?
That was a great quote by her.
Yeah. You mentioned the 6'2". Are they just screwing around? What are they doing with the 6'2"? They just, you think they're serious at all about using it going forward, or that was just kind of it's Maryland, so we're going to experiment?
I that we're going to get into games where it's going 5 and we're playing Pitt, and we don't want, there's a rotation where we have Olivia Babcock is over, whatever, and we just need a different look. We need a different block setup. We need a different something. I think having a double sub where we have the other setter come in and the other right side come in can just give us a different look. If we get down by 5 points in a tight game, we can do something different, put up a different block, give them a different look. And I think you can't expect that to work in a 5-setter versus Pitt if you've never done it in the season. So I just think when you have somebody as good as Ally Check and you have somebody as good as the other setter. Like, you got to give him a chance. You know, she's going to be the setter eventually, so you might as well get her some reps.
I want to ask you a question before we let you go about Penn State, Nebraska's next opponent this Friday night in Happy Valley. They've got 4 losses already on the season. Really unexpected, I guess, especially, and I'm trying to pull the name up, and I can't remember. You might know who it is, the Florida from transfer. The transfer from Florida?
Martin.
Yes. Are you surprised at how Penn State has struggled so far?
Well, I mean, they lost the best setter in the country in the 3rd game of the year. She announced that she was leaving Penn State. So they're playing with like a 5'8" setter who is going to get just demolished by Harper Murray and the Kentucky outsides. And I don't know. I actually listened to the UCLA Penn State game on the way home. We had a tournament today, and I was driving home from Omaha, so I actually put my TV over my car and listened to it. But I mean, Penn State's trying to do what they can. They actually double sub now and have a non-setter setting, just to get a different block up, because that senior that's never set for Penn State ever is setting, and she's 5'8" and she's little, and it's just not the same team. So I mean, I kind of feel bad for them, because Penn State should have been like one of the top 2 teams in the country, top 3 teams in the country, and losing the best setter in the country is gonna do some damage. So it'll be interesting to see how we go in there and if we can handle them, or if there's going to be any like changes on their end to just not worry about the setter and put up a better block. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Tonia, it's hard to find a lot of flaws so far. Obviously, there are none when you're 12-0 and 2-0 in the conference. But I'm trying to think. Now we've had 12 games to look at the difference between a John Cook coach team versus Danny Busboom. It seems like they're more aggressive, maybe, with the hitting. She said she doesn't love tipping, although they do a lot of it. But the serving, a lot of jump serve, is maybe more aggressive there. What are the big differences that you've seen so far between the 2 coaches?
I mean, it's pretty night and day. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone out there with bronze statues or anything, but I just feel like, you know, Coach Cook came from an older school version of, you know, we're going to scare these girls into doing what I want them to do, or if you're not doing what I'm asking, you're going to get pulled out. And I think you saw that stress in Bergen's shoulders and her neck, and same with her right side, Merritt. Just the Bergen Merritt combination, like there was just so much stress on it, and you could just feel it. It was palpable. It was hard to watch. And I think with Danny, I think that she's letting the girls play more free. There's more freedom in practice to make mistakes. There's more freedom to try something different. Maybe let's set the ball higher and see what happens, and let's try something different. Or if this doesn't work, let's sub. But you're not the worst person in the whole world. We're just trying something different, which can be a motivator to do better. And I just think that Danny's just a little bit more new school, and that we're going to play with more confidence and more love for our teammates and love for our coaches, and check the fear at the door. And that's just a different way of coaching. It's just a different philosophy, you know, not being scared to take the big swing, not being scared to get subbed out, being scared to lose your position. And I think you saw that when Lainey got ace 3 or 4 times. She got the libero jersey pulled off of her. She was still the DS and came back and didn't get ace again. And that doesn't happen in the John Cook era. Like the words that would have came out of his mouth to make that change, Lainey probably wouldn't have been able to, you know, sustain that in a 7-minute period and come back and be great. And I just think that's a difference in coaching, and it's just new school versus old school. And all we can do is be proud that Cook handed it off to somebody who's going to take it and run with it. So I respect him for that. And, you know, he built up a great program, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from Danny and the girls right now. Just the tension is out of their shoulders.
Love having you on. Tonia Tauke Dorn, former Nebraska volleyball middle blocker and head coach at Nebraska One. We'll have you back soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
There you go.
Thanks, Tonia.
I love Cook on the broadcasts. I think he does really a good job with the interviews, and the insight from a Hall of Fame coach is fun. He seems like he's enjoying retirement. Just watching him on Nebraska Public Media. I thought he's done a really good job with the post-game interviews. I mean, he's obviously thinking about it. He wants to look good on camera. He's a good-looking guy anyway. But I've been impressed.
Well, and I can appreciate what Tonia was saying there. I mean, some people may take it as a dig at Coach Cook, and it's like it's a different world. It's a different whatever. You're not going to take away the.
You don't think Rose was that way at Penn State?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But they're not taking down the 4 championship banners. They're not taking down the Big Ten titles. And he did it and succeeded at a level that has rarely been seen in the sport. Not only volleyball, but any sport for that long of a run. To be that successful, but at the same time, it's kind of a tip of the cap to Danny for being willing to change up what was super successful and kind of put her own spin on it. So I thought it was, even though it sounded a little, I don't think it was. I think it was just, props to Coach Cook, mad respect, but Danny's doing awesome.
She's doing great. Obviously 12-0. It's hard to do much better than that. So far, so good. Let's get the break and come back with our picks of density. Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, Husker Rewind. More on the way.
Kaboom! And their body bumping in white.
Husker Rewind with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens on Lincoln's Husker Radio, 1499.3 KLIN.
The word from recruits is, from that game on Saturday, just the atmosphere, the crowd, the experience, the energy, the intensity, the excitement. I think we had an amazing amazing experience for those guys, and they had a lot of good things to say, and I think they all see kind of where the program is trending. I mean, I think I always believe that two things can be true. You can feel like, hey, we're excited about the ascension that we're on. We're also very disappointed with the result on Saturday. You know, I also say, look at the top 25. You know, that's where we want to get to. 6 of the top 25 teams have a loss. So, like, you can't, you know, like the days of 2 undefeated teams playing for the national championship are over. Like, you better learn how to grow up and just, like I said, just have a calculated response and play better next week. So
that's one of the things I was thinking watching this weekend's games. I don't think there's going to be a lot of undefeated teams, if any. Alabama has a loss, and they look really good beating Georgia.
There is. That's a juggernaut.
I felt like Ohio State for the first 3 quarters looked beatable against Washington. Then they kind of turned it on. I just don't see Penn State has a loss. I don't think Oregon, they went last year through the league undefeated. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I don't know. I think that's true, especially in this world of NIL. Well, but it's good to hear that the recruiting was good, that the recruits, obviously they received it pretty well. That night or that afternoon, a 2:30 kickoff ended at night, had to be really good. A close game. You lose it 30-27. You would like to have been able to win that game and sell that to recruits. But I think you can definitely sell what happened last Saturday.
I'm looking at Oregon's schedule, and if they don't lose against Indiana at home,
they might win it out.
I don't see anybody that's going to beat them
because they don't play Ohio State.
Yeah,
or they don't play Ohio State
or Michigan.
Yeah,
so they've got Indiana at home, then they're at Rutgers, against Wisconsin at home, at Iowa, Minnesota at home, USC at home, and then at Washington. I don't see a loss. Indiana's the only chance.
There you go. Rule had a few other things to say that I wanted to. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about stopping the run and running the ball. I think that was the big criticism of Nebraska's offensive line play. He had a lot to say about the second running back, but let's see. Let's do the second running back, because we have had that discussion. Why doesn't Nebraska have a second running back? I mean, you're going into game 5. And there's not a defined guy. Sometimes it's been Quentin Ives. Sometimes it's been Mekhi Nelson.
Well, and to Bryan Munson's point, how come you haven't developed one? You've had one in the program now for 3 years that didn't see the field.
So this Michigan. Is what Rule said about the second running back when asked this week.
Again, that's what I've asked the coaches to decide, right? So I went to them today saying, hey, we have 4 games here now. Tell me who the number 2 back is. And more importantly, no matter who it is, who can play, we need somebody to play more, because it's not fair to Emmett to ask him to be out there that many snaps. Okay. So I think it's that as much as anything. Like, in my mind, we need someone, I don't care who it is, we need someone to take some more reps so that we have fresher bodies out there at that position.
I would agree. I mean, we talked about it. Emmett played 69 snaps versus, let's face it, they played 2 really good teams, and then they played Akron and Houston Christian. 69 snaps versus Cincinnati in a close game, and then 72 snaps in a 3-point loss to Michigan. You had 2 or 3 snaps from Isaiah Mosey and 2 or 3 more from Mekhi Nelson, and you didn't even see Quentin Ives. You have a bye week. You had the bye week, and now we're into game week this week. Find a number 2 guy, and that's what Matt Rule is saying. Okay, now we need to find a number 2 guy. It's not fair to Emmett to play that many snaps.
Well, and I completely agree. But I still go back to what I was saying. I've said it for a while. Go back and listen to the shows. I'm questioning the development of our running backs. I mean, you can say what you want to about Emmett Johnson, but tell me right now that Emmett Johnson starts for any team that's what we would consider upper echelon in the Big Ten. The top 6 teams in the Big Ten. Is Emmett Johnson the starter?
I don't know.
The answer is no.
I think they did develop a running back last year for Kentucky. His name's Dante. Dante Dowdell was the leading rusher. Didn't play hardly at all for Oregon. Has gotten off to a nice start at Kentucky.
I don't think we developed him at all last year. I thought he was a huge disappointment last year.
I thought he had a nice year.
Nice year, but from what he was supposed to have, I was not a big fan of him.
Well, he didn't play at all at Oregon because they're loaded.
Yeah.
He barely played. He transferred to Nebraska. Then he got $1 million offer from Kentucky, so he went there. I thought he played okay last year. Emmett, they haven't recruited anybody that you look at and say, wow.
Yeah, running back? No, not. I mean, literally since Amir.
You could say they haven't developed
great
anybody,
guys,
but good
great
guys,
human beings,
and maybe
really
they
good
will be that.
players.
Maybe Quentin Ives was under recruited. I don't think UConn might have been his best offer coming out of high school, and I think he could be good. I thought he looked pretty good against Houston Christian, but it's Houston Christian and all the things that go along with playing running back. It's not just about hey, this is the gap. Go through the gap because we're going to hand the ball to you. It's picking up blitzers. It's catching passes out of the backfield. It's knowing the plays. It's protecting the franchise, Dylan Raiola. There's a lot involved, and I think the one guy they trust to do all of that, whether you think he's an NFL back or not, is Emmett. But Nebraska still hasn't had 1,000-yard rusher since 2018.
Yeah, Divine and
Zigbo.
He was. But
they won't have the one.
But if you're sitting there saying that we need a Divine Ozigbo. No, we don't. We need an Amir Abdullah. Like we don't need a really good. We need an all-conference, first-team all-conference guy at running back.
I agree. And Penn State has 2 of them. Ohio State probably has 3.
Yeah.
Looks like Indiana has plenty of them. Nebraska right now, it looks like they have Dylan Raiola and a good core of receivers.
Yeah, I mean, Ja'Cory is mistake catching the one punt, but other than that, he's electric. Dane Key has shown that he can be the big-time playmaker. And Isaiah Hunter, aside from one play, has looked like he can step up. And, yeah, there's some of the skill positions. You worry about the line. But, man, it would be nice to have a home run hitter at running back.
And I can't say that you don't because we haven't seen them for more than 2 or 3 plays a game. Isaiah Mosey was heavily recruited out of high school.
His ability to make people miss is astonishing. And that's where it's like, how come he hasn't touched the ball more?
Well,
there's a reason, but we don't know what it is.
Well, I think the big reason is Janiron Bonner got injured. He took over the role of Wood that they call Janiron Bonner Wood, who's kind of a hybrid guy. He plays a little fullback, plays a little tight end, plays in the slot. And now he's that guy with the loss of Janiron Bonner, which I think is a big loss.
Oh, I agree.
He might be your best blocker. He's a pretty good running back. He can do a lot of different things for you. But now Isaiah Mosey isn't able to play as much running back anymore because he's kind of a hybrid guy. At least they put him in that role. Time to do the picks of density.
It's time now for the picks of density.
Because it's a pick! A destiny.
Wait a minute. It says density on here.
I'm your density.
Oh, I get it. Because your picks carry a lot of weight, right?
Ah, man. That's heavy.
All right, let's roll with it. The picks of density.
You crushed me this week.
Yes, we did 9 games last week. It was 8-1 to 3-6.
I told you, though, if you do the opposite, you would have done really well.
First one we're going to start off with, I think, is probably the most fun one for Nebraska fans right now because what they're hanging, the ones that are still drinking the Kool-Aid, they're hanging their hat on Cincinnati's a much better team than what we faced, and they're great. That was a great win.
By the way, I won 1 game is all?
3.
I won 3.
You went 3-6.
And I won 1 due to pure luck, I think, at the end where Indiana's quarterback ran toward the end zone and took an intentional safety. Otherwise, I would have lost that one.
Oh, with the points, yeah.
Yeah, with the points.
Yep.
And a lot of college football bettors were really, really mad about that.
But it was a really smart play. I mean, that's
but
to me.
Fernando Mendoza apologized at the press conference to the bettors of the game.
The world we live in today.
Yeah.
So here is your first one. Number 14, Iowa State at Cincinnati. And the Bearcats are favored by 1.5.
The Bearcats are favored over
at home over a top 14 undefeated Iowa State team.
I'm a Matt. Of course, I think they'll win. So do the opposite of everything I say. But I think I think Matt Campbell has been incredible, starting 5-0 for the second straight year. When the athletic department at Iowa State has all those financial problems, I'm sold on Matt Campbell. I just think he's a great, great coach. I'm going to take Iowa State.
See, I'll take Cincinnati, and I'll give the 1.5. The 1.5 is kind of meaningless, but I like the Bearcats in this one. Brendan Sorsby, I think, steps up and runs for a score that wins the football game.
Oh, that was an impressive comeback and a victory over Kansas on Saturday.
That it really was. I'm going to throw this one out there just because We just played them. You've got the Wisconsin Fickles that you're like, I don't know. They won last weekend, but are they going to be able to do what against Michigan in the Big House?
Has he been fired yet?
Not yet.
Not
Michigan
yet.
favored by 16.5. Will the Badgers cover at Michigan?
No, I think Michigan wins by 30.
I'm going the opposite. For whatever dumb reason, I think Wisconsin covers. I think they lose by like 16, not 16.5, but I think they cover.
Well, you'd be just smart to bet against me at this point.
That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not going to lie. Let's go next one here. I'm going to throw this out because of the points. Penn State is a 25.5 point favorite over UCLA, but on the road in LA. Do you think they cover the 25.5 points?
I think they'll be angry this week, and I think they do cover that. UCLA played okay against Northwestern, but Nico Imoliabia, whatever that guy's name is the $1 million quarterback. He's not been very good.
No.
At all. But he can't throw. I mean, he's really good. I mean, in that way. I mean, he's got arm talent. I wonder about their anger and how is it going to be used in a good way? I'm guessing yes. I guess they win. I'm thinking they win big. Okay. Win big on the road.
All righty. Speaking of arm talent or lack thereof, Arch Manning and 9th-ranked Texas go to the Swamp. They take on the Florida Gators, 2:30 on Saturday. Texas is only favored by 7.5. It seems like a sucker bet.
Boy, Arch Manning has not played well this year. Although I guess he's played well more recently or played better more recently. What's the line?
7.5. Only 7.5 against Billy Napier and the Gators, who have been an utter disappointment so far.
Yeah, but it's an SEC game. Is it?
Yeah.
You said
it's at Florida.
It's at Florida. I'll take Florida in that one.
I'm going to take Texas. I don't know. It seems like a sucker bet. I like the fact that we're on opposite sides on this one. What I believe is the only top 25 matchup of the week, number 16 Vanderbilt at Alabama. Game day is going to be there. Don't know why. Alabama favored by 10.5.
I like Vandy, undefeated. Diego Pavia, the sexy quarterback from Vandy. It's a great story. He got the extra year of eligibility this year. I like Vandy. I think they cover.
All right. I like Bama. Nebraska is now a 10.5 point favorite over Michigan State. What say you, Tom Stevens?
I like them. I think it's homecoming. I guess I don't understand the negativity. I thought if it's possible to have a decent loss, that was a pretty decent loss. I think Nebraska bounced back. I am concerned about Aiden Childs. I think he's a really good quarterback for Michigan State, but I like Nebraska to win by a couple touchdowns.
I like Michigan State to win outright. Take them on the money line.
Wow. Hope you're wrong on that one.
So do I.
I would take all my other picks to be wrong, but especially I want you to be wrong there. We got to leave. We'll be back next week. See ya.
See ya.
Hey, Doc, nice office. Quick question. If you had to choose, would you give yourself a root canal or